Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Eagles on Air through the Sportanarium stream. Tonight we have Ben, we have Alex, and we have myself, Steve. Over to you, Alex and Ben, to start off the agenda for tonight's show.
Ben, go first.
Cheers, Steve. It's good to be back.
Definitely good to be back. How are we all?
We're good, thank you. Coping.
Yeah. Staying safe, mate. I hope everyone listening is staying safe also. All right, shall we start with the transfers then, I guess? And Mattetti, what do we make of it?
Don't really know much about him, I'll be honest. I literally had to sort of look at a few YouTube clips and click on the old Google and stuff. All I know is that the guy's got 10 goals in 17 games for a struggling side in the Bundesliga. Hadn't heard anything about him, but apparently, I don't know if you boys heard, we were after him last season, but I never saw anything like that.
I didn't see the link. No, you're quite right. I heard that as well. But apparently, Hodgson wanted him, and I watched his interview, and he mentioned that Roy spoke to him and said that he wanted him back in the last window. So, I mean, that is positive, because sometimes when we bring in players, you don't always think that they're what the manager really wants, especially at Palace.
Well, they're the transfers that we all want. They're the ones that you want this recruitment team. And let's be honest, it's a sentimentally appointed recruitment team because they haven't done a good job at all. I mean, Eze was a cracking signing. And I think he's going to develop into an amazing player for us if we actually keep him for a period of time, which I hope we do. But you know, these sort of transfers where someone gets unearthed that you've never heard of, that's the ones that we really need to be finding. And this recruitment team needs to step up big time, because I think we've got Schlupp, we've got Zaha, we've got Riederwald. And other than that, everyone else is sort of late 20s, early 30s. Yeah. And the squad is aging big time.
So where do we really need to replace?
Age sort of gap where everyone else is getting younger players, and we kind of need to just kind of jump on that bandwagon, because if we do sit stagnant for 2 years, they're early 30s and late 20s, like you say, and everyone else around us is getting young players in. And we're going to end up struggling because it's going to be age versus experience, isn't it? Then,
if you look at it, boys, I mean, we've got Benteke allegedly going to West Brom by the looks of it, and we might get a small fee for him, given the fact he's got 6 months left on his contract. Townsend's been muted to be going as well if we sign Damari Gray. And we might get a couple of million for him. But other than that, other than Wilf, no one's really got any real sell-on value. I've heard some rumours that Arsenal were interested in Mitchell. But, I would say to Mitchell, you need to stay and you need to play, get some experience, because you'll get that at Palace.
Yeah.
He won't get that at Arsenal. He's not going to dislodge Kieran Tierney. That's a certainty. So all he's going to do is go there, maybe get paid a bit more and warm the bench.
Yeah.
Few FA Cup games, few League Cup games next season. That's about as good as it will get for him. But, you know, if you look at our youth, we bought Wan-Bissaka through. 50 million later, a lot of people can argue the toss that he hasn't produced anywhere near as good form for Man United as he did for Palace. But it shows there's quality in that youth setup. 200% hit rate. 2 players pulled up because we literally had no choice whatsoever, and they're both quality. So what else is lying in that in those young players out there? What's the point in having an academy if you're not going to give these people a chance?
Or just send them out on loan to League Two clubs, which they've been doing.
And then you get the fan base turning around going, oh, these players aren't good enough. I go and watch them. I do this, I do that. All right, okay, I respect that. You might well watch them.
Yeah.
But you may well go and see them playing in these low league sides in League One, League Two. No disrespect to that.
Yeah, of course.
But how do you know? How can you comprehensively say that these players don't have the ability to step up to the Premier League
Well,
if you don't give them a chance? It seems like every other club will give these players, these young players, a chance, bar us, unless we've got an injury crisis that you can't get any other way round.
That is the point of the loans, though, isn't it? Really, to send them out to your League Ones, your League Twos, and hope that they set it alight and come back.
Problem is, though, Ben, they do set it alight quite often. They come back and then they just carry on languishing in the reserves and in the under 23s and under 18s respectively. Hodgson, all the while we've got Hodgson, that man will not bring anyone through. I mean, look at Scott Banks. You know, we bought him off Dundee United, highly regarded. We loaned him back to the same league, to the team that was bottom of that league. I can't understand that. You know, if you're gonna do that, if loan was your intention, loan him straight back to the club you bought him from, who were top at the time. And now he's gone back up to the Scottish leagues. I don't understand it. If he's that good and that regarded, give the guy a chance, play him.
Is it a case of stick and twist though? How many times can you twist before you come unstuck?
Yeah, but that's the thing, mate. If you call someone up and say, "Come on, there's your platform, there's your arena, go and show me what you got," these players are just going to come in with pride, with passion, wanting to really, really prove a point, and they're chomping at the bit to do that. There's no way you're going to get one of these players come on and have a mare, because they'll be absolutely itching to do the best they can. And let's face it, some of the performances from the first teamers this season has been appalling. You know, you don't even justify being on the bench after that, in my opinion. So, you know, how can you lose anything by giving these players a go? Because if they come in and they don't play well, it's an arm around the shoulders. Sorry, mate. You know, you've not done as well as I hoped you would. Get your chin up, pull your socks up, and crack on for a few more games in the youth, and we'll look at it again. It's all about man management. You can't just ignore these players. I mean, look at Nia Kirby. We fought tooth and nail to get that guy from Arsenal. Got him. Never given him a chance. What's the point?
Yeah.
But these guys, they've come in and it suited us because we're buggered. We were buggered at the time with Wan-Bissaka and Mitchell. And honestly, if they played poorly, it didn't really matter because that was it. That was the option that we had. So it's a bit of a win-win, really. And maybe if we bring in players when we're doing well and they don't perform, maybe that's when they get sunk, if you like.
Well, I mean, if we're saying as a club we haven't got the money to go out and spend, and the infrastructure isn't there to invest in the squad, we don't have the money. I mean, look at what we did to Max Meyer. I mean, that's horrific what we've done with him. And if we haven't got the money, then, you know, if you've got an academy that's, you know, up there as an elite academy, surely these players have got to be worth it. Otherwise, why would you give them contracts?
I think a lot of Palace fans are actually a little bit scared that the same thing might happen to Eze that happened to Meyer, where he needs to be playing in his position and he's getting played out of position. I suppose Eze's, for me, I just need to see more from him. There's nothing worse for a defender than having someone run at you. And I've only seen him run with the ball a couple of times, but when he does it, you just want to see more. You just want to encourage it. And it's a shame that Wilf sort of hasn't really taken him under his wing and sort of gone, come on, mate, you can do it. You've got the ability. Let's see more of it.
Our biggest problem as a club right now, and I'm very vocal about it, is Hodgson. He came in, FDB, he wasn't setting the world alight, and the faith wasn't there, so he got sacked. So we bring in another old hat manager who, yes, he made us solid for 6 months, but I think the football since that 6-month point has just been on a massive decline to the point where the natural disposition from a Palace player right now is when they receive the ball is to play it back, even if they're right up at the top of the pitch in the opposing goal. It's turn round, it's pass it back rather than run at people. And I've said it all along as well, Ben. Attack is the best form of defence. Sitting there and saying, yeah, we'll hold you for 85 minutes, 80 minutes, and then we'll try and hit you for 1 or 2 breaks and try and convert those opportunities is never going to work for Palace, because clinical and Palace isn't 2 words that link together, unfortunately. And that's proven because we're one of the lowest scorers in the league this season, if not the lowest, I think.
Well, maybe getting in this Mateta's going to change things around. We do need something positive up front. I mean, I'm quite sorry for Batshuayi. But then again, these players, they need game time. Even if we got Gray in, he has to start. These players don't just turn from being great to being poor. They need game time.
Batshuayi will never work for us, not because he isn't a good player, because he is a finisher. He's proven that, especially at a national level. The tactics and the formation don't link to his play. And this is something that I've always gone on about since God was a boy with Hodgson. He doesn't understand the player's strengths and weaknesses. He doesn't know how to put a tactic in place that gets the best out of these players. A lot of people slate Allardyce. You either love him or hate him. But at least the man knew what the strengths and weaknesses were of each player and actually played to the strengths.
And his best 11 as well. I don't think Roy Hodgson knows about his best 11.
Roy Hodgson is just a respected gentleman who will put his arm around a player, and because of his age, because of who he is, because he is a Palace fan as well, and he's sort of local and whatnot, he thinks that's going to create the inspiration for a player when the chips are down, when they're not playing well, when the form's bad. He's not the type of person to throw some F and Jeffs into a player because they're playing poorly. He's not the type of person to drop them because they're playing poorly. If you're Wilf, if you're Luca, if you're those sort of players, it doesn't matter how bad you play. You're going to be one of the first names on the team sheet, regardless.
But this season, has he done that bad a job looking at the fixtures? Really, you got a draw against Arsenal, draw against Leicester, draw against Tottenham. I can't remember the last time we got a point at Tottenham.
I'm convinced, and a lot of people slate me for it, but I'm convinced that the reason why we get good results isn't Hodgson, isn't the tactics, isn't the formation, it's individual brilliance. Against Leeds, Eze was exemplary. Against West Brom, I think the red card changed that game, but the players were top draw, and they played with a freedom. Against Leeds. Eze again, Sheffield United, Eze again. It's always, at the moment, it's the same players basically bringing the same sort of results, those wins, and they're stepping up. It's when they step back down and they obey what he wants, they obey the tactics. We sit back for 85 minutes and we get thumped 4-0 against Chelsea.
I see that.
And we get thumped 4-0 against Man City because it doesn't matter who you play in this league. You cannot contain teams. We went away to Burnley and tried to do the same thing, and they beat us. All right, the margins were a lot less than the likes of Man City and Chelsea, but you can't play like that. It's impossible.
Is that not expected though, to lose against Chelsea, to lose against Man City?
Man City, perhaps, yeah. Given that current previous form, perhaps you might have sneaked a draw or aimed for that. There's no real ambition, but to lose to Burnley, to lose to Newcastle,
bad. That was bad. Yeah.
Those sort of games they're just not the games you should be losing, and you should be having a lot more ambition. You should be right. Let's take them. Let's take the game to them. Let's put them to the sword, and really play with an attacking, mentality. This sitting back stuff, it's got to stop, because all it's doing is inviting teams onto you, and the players just get knackered because they're defending for pretty much the majority of the game, and you get one or two counter-attacks that you've got to convert, and we don't convert chances. We know that at the best of times.
And
The
to be honest,
Arsenal-
I think when we do have a surprise result against a team in the top 6, it almost validates a poor result against a team that you've
yeah,
beaten.
no, I agree with that. 100%. But I watched this against Arsenal, and I'm still scratching my head. So how we didn't come away with the 3 points in that game?
Yeah, we should have done, but that's the whole point, Ben. When we play well, when we do what we do against, you know, the games that we've had like Arsenal, Leicester, and, you know, Spurs, we probably on reflection should have won all 3, and we created enough chances to win all 3. The difference was we just can't put it in the back of the net. So we haven't had a proper striker, in my opinion, since.
AJ.
Well, prime Benteke under Allardyce, he got 17 goals. But prior to that, AJ, prior to that, Murray, it just seems to be a position that we think that we can go out on the cheap and just get someone in, or we can get a loan in, or we can just find someone that isn't going to perform, and just think that's acceptable. Every team that plays in the Premier League has got someone that's going to knock in 10, 15, 20 goals, and we just haven't had that for a long time. I think it's absolutely vital that we get that to happen, and hopefully Mateta will be that guy. We don't know. I don't know much about him, but hopefully he'll be that guy.
Well, it's like you say, we've got to play to the strengths of him.
And we've got to work him out as soon as possible.
Whether he'll start against West Ham, I'm not entirely sure. I think I shared with you boys a picture that I saw about that he's on a hot streak and Wilf's back for the West Ham game.
I think Mateta's not available because of some international clearance I read.
Oh, right.
Which would be typical Palace, not to get the transfer correct. Yeah, you can only laugh about these things. That's the thing. You can only laugh about these things. But one transfer that I am very, very intrigued with is Demarai Gray. I mean, he struggled at Leicester. There's been players that have come in that, you know, you're going to find it hard getting in front of Maddison and Tielemans and people like that. But at 1.8 million, which is the fee being muted, I think that's absolute steal, and that's Palace territory. Anything 10 million or below, we seem to be our ceiling, really. We'll go over it for a defender and absolutely have our pants pulled down for people like Sacco and stuff like that. But, you know, he's 24. He's got a point to prove. He's got age on his side, and that's exactly what we're after. We need these younger players.
I think we are starting to build. There is the building blocks there. I mean, Ferguson, when he does join the team, and you got that Eze, so that he's slowly coming together. I know we have got one of the oldest squads in the league, but
we've got the oldest squad in the league.
I definitely can see some potential. And when we start signing these players, maybe we'll think, oh, I'll stay here another season. I can't see it, but maybe that's what we're hoping.
I mean, you had Wilf down as someone to talk about. Personally, I don't see Wilf leaving ever, and the reason for that is Parish. Not because he wants to stand in his way, but Parish has got that valuation, and if that valuation does not get met, he's still got 3 years on his contract. He's 28. We're perfectly within our rights to keep saying no and keep saying no. Unless you give us £80 million, which is what we want, which is what Parish has said on numerous occasions, I don't see him going. And I don't. The only team that I see paying that amount,
Chelsea or Man City.
Well, Man City wouldn't go for Wilf, I don't think.
Munich, Dortmund.
No, I don't think they'd pay that. PSG at best.
Yeah.
And at best, right now in COVID, as it stands, I think we're going to get offers of 40 or 50 million, and Parish will just laugh that off.
But that's one thing that I do agree with Steve on, is why don't let your best players go, especially. Yeah, I mean, 80 million. A lot of other fans will look at that and just think you're having a laugh, but not really. This season, he's pretty much set it alight. Everyone last year was like, "Oh well, he's not valued that last year," and it's like, but look over what he's done since he's been in the Premier League. It's probably the most exciting winger to watch, and I still believe that if you swapped out Sterling and put Wilf in the City team, Wilf would get a lot more results than what Sterling
He's only
produces.
played the thing with Wilf. He's played 12 games this season. He's scored 9 goals. He's had 3 games out with injury, and then we got whopped 4-0 by Man City, whopped 4-0 by Chelsea. So we've had a few heavy defeats there, and he wasn't on his game that day. But also, you know, Hodgson is doing his best to stifle the life out of every player, including him. And there's been more than often this season where the ball's come up to him, and normally, season or 2 seasons ago, he's absolutely rinsing the players that he's playing against. Quite often this season, he's turned around and passed it back, which is no good for him. And a lot of the focus, you know, is on him from the opposing team. So he doesn't get the space that he normally would get when we play someone just behind the striker or the front two if we're playing that way. And that's why I'm just gutted that we let Meyer go, because when we played Meyer behind the front two, it gave Wilf the space to do some good stuff, and the focus was on Meyer as well, and he had some good games for us. And I think Hodgson is dropped an absolute over that and allowing him to go. I can understand why he wanted to go. If you're not being played and you're not in the manager's plans, and the only way that you're in those plans, or if you convert yourself to being a left winger, which he never has been and never will be, then I can understand why he'd want to go. You know,
I'd be interested to see if it's a cry for help from Hodgson to say, look, I need to put Wilf up front because I haven't got anything else. Whether the new striker, when he comes in, whether he'll push Wilf back on the wing or not.
Wilf all day long needs to be on the wing.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
totally agree with that.
He can cut in. He can, you know, take some shots. He can bring other people into the game. Whatever, he can do all that. But when you put him up front and you're launching it up to him, Benteke-esque style, you know, it's pointless because you don't win nothing in the air, and it just takes him out of the game. I mean, what he does with Benteke takes him out of the game. You're asking the guy to drop 25 yards deep to flick the ball on to what would have been Benteke. What you're better off doing is getting Chiarte out of central defence, putting him in midfield, launching it up to him to flick it on to Benteke because he's nearly as tall.
Quite sharp.
So, you know, what you're doing is you're just making Benteke rendered useless and pointless.
Yeah.
Because when he holds the ball up in his chest and he turns around to look at where am I going to play it, he ain't got no one there because everyone's relying on him to have this unbelievable speed to turn around and go off, and he hasn't got the speed. Plant him on the back central defender, last man. Plant him there. Tell him to stay there, and take him back to the Balassi and Wilf years. Cross the ball in and let him do what he does best.
I'd like to see Schlott one side and Wilf the other. You want to get that pace going. But I just find with Wilf that the more time that he has, even if he gets played through, he's so used to being in such a tight angle and getting off a tight shot. The more time he has, the more it sort of seems to go wrong if he goes through on goal, if you know what I mean.
He tries to do too much. You can see that he feels that the onus is on him to produce something.
Exactly.
Which is why I'm delighted we got Eze in. The way Eze's not played well in every game, but he's had some great performances so far. And if you tell him play with freedom, that's what you get. If you tell him he's got to be defensive and he's got to track back and he's got to do that aspect, then you nullify him, which Hodgson has done in several games because he just doesn't understand his players.
He seems to slow the game down for me a lot, Eze. It's like gyro sometimes in the midfield. He'll give it to get it back again, just to open up a door. But with Eze, it just seems like we're on the counter-attack and then he'll sort of slow it down. And it's like, come on.
But that's not Eze, that's Hodgson. Because if you look at the way Eze played against West Brom, against Leeds and against Sheffield United, that was the polar opposite to the way he's played in every other game. He played with freedom and just went for it. And that's what I'll take you back to my point of when the players collaboratively ignore the tactics and just think, sod it, we're going to go for it.
Yeah.
We see a different Palace side. We see individual brilliance, creating goals and scoring goals. You don't score 5 against West Brom. Any team doesn't score 5 against West Brom unless you're going for it. You don't score 4 against Leeds unless you're going for it.
Yeah.
You know,
Against United at Old Trafford.
And 3 against United. If they ignore what Hodgson says, you see a different Palace, and he's holding this side back. A younger manager, he's more dynamic, has a different approach. Trust me, you just see a different Palace side. You'd see a Palace side challenging for the top 10, in my opinion.
You just reminded me of a point there, Steve, with the free kicks. Eze scores that wonder free kick, and then it just seems every time we get a free kick, he's sort of third in line. You're thinking, what are you doing? Get off the ball.
And Luca takes over. Why? He's been taking free kicks, Eze, and yet as soon as Luca comes back into the picture, he's off free kick.
Name one thing, boys. Name one thing Luca's done well this season. You can't. Name one thing that he did good last season. You can't. He's been absolutely terrible for a season and a half. Prior to that, obviously, he got all them penalties and stuff and them goals, and he done all right. But now, every time we get a set play, because he's the captain, because Hodgson loves him, because he can't do anything wrong, he can get 5 bookings in a row, get dropped and still come back. He can get a red card and still come in. Yeah. He's always in there. And every time he takes a corner, every time he takes a free kick, it's horrific. He can't beat the first man, and in any set play that you're taking, if you can't beat the first man on the corner, why do you keep on insisting that he still takes them?
So why is it that Gyro can't get in front of him?
Like I said earlier, it's that typical old hat scenario where you've got your favourite. It doesn't matter what they do. I mean, the guy went out on New Year's Eve, completely flaunted all the COVID rules and gave 0 you-know-whats. And he was still back in the side the next game.
Yeah.
And he didn't even get told by Hodgson that he needed to make an apology. It was a total disrespect to the fans and everything. And in the end, he made his apology, which wasn't heartfelt. It wasn't sincere. It was the fact that he got told to do it because he, obviously dropped a you-know-what.
I did hear that he gave a lot to the NHS, though.
Yeah, he did. He did do that, but that's just an act of guilt, in my opinion. Yeah. That's just an act of, I've got to be seen to be doing something that's good.
Like a knee-jerk.
What I've done isn't good.
I don't see how Gyro's not breaking that team. It's infuriating because is it just going to be another Maya case where we don't play them, they get frustrated, they think, right, I'm off, and then they start doing the business for other teams?
It's a classic, as I said. Hodgson's holding that whole team back. The mentality of the players, the spirit is up and down like someone's knickers. It's effectively that bad, and it's. They're either up for it or they're not up for it, and more often than not, they're not up for it. I mean, the Burnley game, the Newcastle game, they're prime examples of the players just not up for it, and there's no mentality to go for it. As I said earlier, those are the games that you need to be winning. It's vital.
Was it Boxing Day or New Year's Day? But I remember watching PVA and his body language, and it just looked like he did not want to be on that pitch. And I can't think of who we played.
I think
it might have been Villa.
That game.
I think PVA needs to spend some time away from social media because he seems more intent in sort of engaging with people that way than just get your head down and get on with the game. I mean, to be fair, in his defence, he'd probably be good on the left wing.
Yeah.
If he was told you don't need to track back, stick out on the left wing, he'd probably be good out on the left wing, in my opinion.
I want to say that he takes a lot of grief, but is his support really there on the left side, from the left wing? There's a lot of times, and I think when Ez's played, that there's just been no one there.
Yeah, but Eze, we'll go back to him. He's not a left winger. He's an attacking midfield, or he sticks behind the front two, or he can play in midfield as a central midfielder. But unfortunately, what you've got is a manager that is absolutely hell-bent on having 2 or 3 defensive midfielders in front of the back four. So it doesn't give that opportunity for people to have that freedom. You know, your Eze's, those sort of players don't get the opportunity to showcase what they can do, because the mentality is you've got to be defensive. That's your issue.
He just seems to be in the sort of easy out sometimes. Like he's sort of like the new Hennessy trend, or where he gets slammed a lot. Like, don't get me wrong, he's not been brilliant, and some of the stuff he's done is been very, very poor. But the support isn't always there.
I mean, don't forget he's young. He's still got a lot to learn. He's got a lot that he can develop as well. And you're right, it might be a good idea for someone like Wilf to take him under his wing, being one of the more sort of experienced players. But, you know, I think there's a lot more to come from him as a player, to be fair.
I'd like to see Gyro in there with Eze and with Wilf.
Just 100%. 100% Gyro should be starting.
Yeah. We'll take a leaf out of that Fulham game. That Fulham game was pretty good.
Yeah, he seems to have good games and then just gets dropped. It's crazy. I don't.
It's like he can't do any better, and yet he's doing his absolute best what he's doing, and yet think you can always read it on Twitter when they say, "Yeah, he's going to get dropped."
Was Milivojevic injured though at that time? I think there was an issue in midfield, wasn't there? And that's why he started getting a nod. And as soon as he comes back, he loses his spot. I'd check in centre back for me. He's just not a centre back. I don't know what you guys feel, but I just when I watch him, it's not as bad as Sacco, but it's pretty close. It's
I think he's been overall decent. He's made a few mistakes, but he's not a full-time defender, and for some reason, whether it's a lack of faith in the other defenders that we've got, that Hodgson sort of looked at it and think, you know, you're doing a far better job, we're going to keep you there. You know, it's a hard one to gauge, really. Personally, I wouldn't have him there. I'd have Cahill and I'd have Tompkins.
Yeah, that would be my pairing.
That would be my preferred choice. I think, sadly for Scott Dann, last season he was fantastic. This season he's sort of come back and he's not the player that he was. He's just literally, you know, moved on another year and aged and shown it. And I mean, who was it that was going against him? Absolutely rinsed him for pace. It was Sterling. That was it. Just
Sterling, I'm heard of most people, though, wouldn't they?
He would, but it just made it even more apparent. I mean, Dan just looked like he wasn't even moving.
But Cahill got slammed for that game, and I thought, bloody hell, give him a chance. He's just come back from injury, and he's playing Man City, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's it." Cahill's
that's a great point, because, you know, we are very reactionary, and I will say that I am too. But he literally had only just come back from being injured the previous game, so I think some of that criticism was a little bit harsh. Maybe he shouldn't have come back. I mean, just going off piece a little bit, Ben. You've had lots of reports from Hodgson, lots of praise for Dreyer. You know, he's been playing in defence, I believe, and that's a prime example of, if you haven't got the confidence in what you've got in front of you, take a different direction and give him a chance.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to give him a chance at some stage. Or are you just going to let him go like we seem to let all of the other youngsters do? Like Kai and people like that.
I think with centre-backs, though, it's a little thing with age, isn't it? Even when you buy them when they're 28, you know, they've still got a pretty good shelf life.
Yeah, but they have. But you've got 2 Premier League loans you can have, and you've got 1 European loan.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't for life understand how we weren't in for Tomori from Chelsea. even if we cancelled Batshuayi's loan and swapped it for him.
Well,
Surely we should be looking at players like that and exploring that. If we haven't got the money, that's what we should be exploring, stuff like that.
Definitely. I don't know where we go really with the defence. How many more years it's got left? But
Well,
I don't think he's playing the best team that we have, especially at the back. I mean, if you're a defender and you see Czech in there, you're thinking, what am I doing wrong? My position is centre back, and he's his CDM. I know he plays obviously for his country as a defender, but it must just be so infuriating and humiliating, if you like.
Who would you boys keep out of all the defenders we've got?
Cahill, Tompkins.
Yeah.
Of
course, Mitchell. I wouldn't keep PVA.
But the thing is, Sacco produces some fantastic stats. I mean, I know everyone gives him a bit of a ribbon, but a lot of the games that he come out of, his passing's up there with one of the best. His tackling, it's just not pretty to watch, I guess, and that's what people might go against.
And when he's not trying to do back heels in his own box.
And Cruyff turns. You do realise that Sacco's not played many more games than Wickham at this rate.
No,
the guy's made of glass. I mean, he came back, trained, and then got injured again.
Well, I saw a tweet saying that every time we go to sell him, he gets injured. So,
well, that's exactly what I was about to say. It's quite ironic that that's happened, given the fact it's the January window and Leon were looking at him.
Yeah, no, I did read that. The thing, there's no point in getting rid of these players if we're not going to replace, though, and that's the worry, I think.
Someone sent me a picture. I'm just going to find it. Yeah, so my Palace mate sent me a picture, and out of contract. So we've got Gator, Klein, Cahill, Sacco, PVA, Townsend, McCarthy, Schlupp, Benteke, and obviously he's not our player, but Batshuayi are all out of contract this summer.
Well, Schlupp's got to be kept on for me. He has to be out of all of that pick. I mean, I know what you're saying. That's a hell of a lot of players. But which out of them are you happy to just say, thanks for playing?
Well, or just give them a year contract extension on the principle of not trying to lose them for free.
I mean,
the problem is with that, Al, if you look at that, which one of those has got any value? I mean, Schlupp you get some money for.
PVA?
PVA you might scrape a little bit of money for.
Take a loss on Townsend.
Townsend, I mean, I know a lot of people hate Townsend, but I rate Townsend because his work rate is brilliant. Yes, he can't win a header, he can't do those sort of stuff, and he's stopped running at players as much. But
on his day, definitely.
You can't knock him, and he scored some fantastic goals for us.
He's had a good season this season. His assists are pretty decent this season, to be fair to him. It's just picking those numbers up. But going back to that list, I mean, if we get rid of PVA, who we got then? Who's replacement? Klein, you'd probably give an extension to for getting Nathan Ferguson up to speed, and then he'll be your backup, or I suppose you got Wald. But there's a lot of those players. If we get rid of, there is going to be gaps galore.
Well, I mean, if you look at the wages, Benteke, 130 grand a week. You've got Schlupp, who's on, I believe, 65 grand a week. McCarthy, 50 grand. MacArthur, I think he's similar. Townsend's on about 60. PVA, 60. Sacco's on 120. Cahill, I think it's 80. Klein, I mean, I don't know what the short-term contract that he was given, but there's some huge wages in there that would free up. But the problem with that, even if we free up the wages, are we going to put the money out there to actually complete some transfers?
But
I'm just concerned about it big time.
Cahill, right? He's been massive. We get rid of him. That's a massive blow. PVA would be a pretty big blow.
Gator would be a massive blow if we lost him.
Yeah. So the keeper, MacArthur, I know people love slating him off, but he had a fantastic game against Arsenal when I watched him, and he really didn't put a foot wrong in that game. He's your main midfielder for the last, 6 years, 7 years?
Mm.
I mean, they're pretty big boots to fill.
But he's got his heart set on finishing his career at Rangers, isn't he?
Yeah, but they're big names, Steve. That's worrying, mate. If it was a case of, I don't know, Conor Wickham's on there, you'd be like, oh, okay, well, see you later, mate. But those names are pretty big names, and they are going to affect us.
I mean, I know Benteke come back to a bit of form, and he got 3 decent goals and whatnot, and he's looked a lot better in himself. But he's got 6 months left, and he's on 130 grand a week. You know, am I concerned about him going? If Mateta comes in and sets the world alight, clearly I won't be. But you can't keep giving these older players contracts because you're just hemorrhaging money that you can't invest in younger players.
Well, I think when we started podding, a couple of years ago, we were talking about the squad and contracts back then and injuries, which seems to be happening again. But we've just not got rid of. It's unfair to call it dead wood, but we've just let them age and age and age, and now it's getting to the point where the cars are running out of petrol.
Well, I mean, we're going off piste here, and I know it's not a point that we were going to talk about, but I do feel that our training methods and how much training that we do, plus our medical department, I think there's something missing there, because some of these injuries that these guys get, and they get an injury and they come back and they train and then they get injured again. I mean, it's like either they're going too hard in training, or the medical department are failing them. It's got to be one way or the other. And the cynic in me just thinks that it's. I can't see them training too hard or overly hard. I think it's the medical department, and I feel that would need an overhaul as well. I might be going down a completely wrong path, perhaps, but it just seems weird that these players keep getting these silly injuries, and we don't see many of the players get an injury in a game, do we? For us,
no.
In training,
you know, Wilf got an injury against Arsenal the other night. That was probably one of the first injuries I've seen us have all season on the pitch. So what's going on in training? Something's falling down. You know, either they're just going over a bit too zealous, or you know, trying to prove too much of a point. I'm not sure.
Well, it's no coincidence, is it? The last 3-4 years, it's the same, and it always seems to be the back four. To be fair, I don't think we've had a consistent back four for God knows how many years.
No, I mean, your point earlier, Alex, about the fact that if you've got to pull on someone like Chiarte as a central defender, I mean, there's clearly no faith in what you've got in front of you, is there?
That's true. Yeah. That's why I stuck by that point. It's just knowing that, and to kind of accept it, and kind of how would you sort of equivalent of swapping it over and sorting it out.
I mean, we sort of talked about transfers and stuff, and we could really do with a genuine attacking midfielder, someone to replace Cabaye, which is another player we've not replaced. And I'll put it out there. I mean, it might be a far-fetched name to put out there, but Mario Götze is available on a free. And if you're willing to spend 170 grand a week on Maya or whatever that the sum was, surely you could at least put an offer in for someone like that. I mean, the Premier League combined with a London club,
He'd love it.
You know, it may be beyond. It may be completely beyond any realism, but if you're going to improve as a team, you've got to be trying to get these sort of players.
Yeah, he'd probably try to put him into a centre back.
Have we still got that, Paul, though? I mean, if we get Gray, then maybe we have. But the players are going to come in under that and watch us and see how we play and think, does that really suit my style of football?
To be honest, if I was a player looking in at a club, if I was potentially going to join, I wouldn't look how they play. I'd look who they've got. And we've got a massive pool, I think, with the likes of Eze, Zaha, PVA, Guarta, Benteke, Townsend. If you put that on paper and come out as a neutral fan looking at that, thinking that's an half-decent team, it's just how they play. It's like what Steve said earlier. If they don't stick to Washington's plan, they play with absolute freedom and they get results and they play attacking, aggressive football, but it's just implementing that and letting Hodgson have his way.
The bizarre thing with Hodgson, and everyone knows I've got no time for the bloke, and I personally think, and I know I get a lot of grief for it. He's one of the worst managers that we've had as a club.
I agree.
Purely on the basis that he's stifled the life out of this squad. He's taken away, not ability. He's not taken some players' ability, but he's just made players be someone they're not.
Yeah, almost like he dilutes them.
Yeah, and it takes away that threat. And at the end of the day, yes, he hasn't had the backing. Everyone knows that. It doesn't matter what you say. But at the end of the day, that man chooses what goes out on that pitch. He chooses the formation, he chooses the tactics, and he chooses the players. And the bit I can never get my head around is, how can we beat teams like Arsenal 3-0 away last season and go to Old Trafford and beat them 3-1 this season, go to West Brom and get the biggest away win that we've ever had, 5-1, and get wins like that, beat Man City, and stuff like that. How can we do that when he changes the tactic up? For some reason, I think he just has a blip and he says, "I'll just go for it," which is totally unlike him. We go for it and we win, and then the next game he plays completely the polar opposite. We're better off, honestly. We're better off playing the same tactics we play away, playing them at home, home and away. Because when we do that, when we play like that, we get the results. And we get shock results. No one expected us to go to Old Trafford and win 3-1. No one expected us to go to West Brom and win in the manner that we did, 5-1. We hoped that we would get a win, given the fact that you would hope we're a better set of players and we should beat opposition like that. But you don't expect a 5-1 win. And it's just really bizarre how we play brilliantly like that, and in the next game we're just absolute rubbish.
Does Hodgson not deserve some of that praise though for those games? I mean,
it's almost like he's upon it. It's almost like the result stumbles upon him at that time. I don't know.
I know what you're saying about we sit behind the ball, and I completely get it. As soon as we can see the goal, it's like that's it. That's our game plan completely gone. And now it's just like, how many is it going to be? Rather than, right, come on, wake up, boys. Let's go for it. I do get what you're saying, but the praise still has to be given to him for getting them results. So I'm not a fan of the football that I've seen there.
Yeah, I mean, I might be being overly harsh. Yeah, I'll give him a little bit of praise in respect to getting those wins. But the bit that drives me insane is, after 80 minutes of playing absolute tosh, rubbish football, no substitutions, no change of tactic, and he'll bring a defensive midfielder on for a defensive midfielder and just carry on playing the same way. It bewilders me. It's like, how do you honestly think we're going to win a game? We just spent the last 80 minutes playing absolute rubbish, not created anything, and not even had a shot on target, which, on a side note, 6 games this season, we've not even had a shot at goal.
No, it's been shocking.
How do you win that? And then he's practiced his excuses after the game when he's being interviewed. The one against Wolves, I've never been so angry in my life at Palace and at him, because he stood there and said, I think it's commendable. I don't know the exact words, but I know it really infuriated me. But he was commending the fact that we got a number of crosses in against the Wolves back four. It was 3 crosses, boys. We're standing there and we're being interviewed as a club, and we're saying that we are happy with the fact that we got 3 crosses into the box, and completely skirt over the fact that we didn't even take a shot. So explain to me how 3 crosses into the opposing team's box is going to win you a game if you don't even shoot. The two don't correlate.
Obviously, he's aiming high.
And it's 6 games, boys. We've had 20 games this season, including the FA Cup game, and we've had just under a third of those games not even registering a shot.
Can I just say, right? If we had beaten Newcastle and Burnley, would it take less of the strain off of it and the anguish, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, those are the games, as I said to you earlier. I mean, I'm just having a quick look at the table. If we were,
because he comes out and he says, well, it's the best start that they've ever had, which is true. Don't get me wrong, Steve. I'm in exactly the same boat as you, mate. I watch a game of football. I don't see a shot on target. The subs, I'm with you. I'm completely lost. I think there was one game where he did bring on the strikers, and then we got absolutely whomped. So, I don't know. It's sort of a joke with us, especially on Twitter. It gets to 80 minutes and everyone's like, oh, first sub. And it just seems to be the way it is. It is infuriating.
But the thing with the subs, the most infuriating part isn't the fact he's making the subs are late. It's the fact that the people that he's bringing on aren't going to change the game. And I don't know what goes through his head. You're losing, 1 or 2-0, and you bring on Luca for McCarthy, or you bring on McCarthy for MacArthur. I just don't understand how that's going to change the dynamic of the game and help you get back into it. You're better off changing the tactic and going, right, let's stick Wilf up front with Benteke and Batshuayi, and have 3 up front.
And go for broke.
And two on the wing, knocking crosses into him, and go for broke. Because the end result is still going to probably nigh on likely be the same. You're still going to walk off that pitch having lost. But at least you would have gone for it. Yeah. At least you would have tried.
Yeah. Is it a case, though, of I'd rather get a point than get nothing? And sometimes
I'd rather get a point than get nothing. But if you're losing 2-0,
then you got nothing to lose.
The prime example, right? The worst game that we've had this season isn't the Man City 4-0 drubbing. That was really, really bad. It isn't the Chelsea 4-0 drubbing, because that was really, really bad. It's the 3-0 loss to Aston Villa. Yes. It's the fact that they went down to 10 men and up to that point, which was, I think, the 38th minute or 35th minute or something silly like that Mings went off for, we changed nothing. We didn't change our approach. Every time we got the ball, we went backwards. And we just didn't even put them to the sword. Instead, what they did was like, well, sod it. We've gone down to 10 men. We haven't got anything to lose. We're going to take the game to him, and we're going to show him his boss. And that's exactly what we did. We allowed them to play with freedom, and we allowed them to take the game to us. And we didn't know what to do, because the tactics are so mind-numbing. They're so dull and pointless that the players just think, oh, well, what's the point? And there's no spirit, there's no fight, there's no zealousness, there's no passion. And it's just completely wiped from them when you're trying to defend a game for all of that time against 10-man Villa. You got a 1-man advantage. What are you doing?
The problem is common sense said to you, right, as soon as he got sent off, keep the ball, make them work. And we just didn't do that. We gave them the ball and invited them onto us. It was sublime to watch. And really, they did a palace to palace.
Well, they did. And the worst part of that game wasn't the 3-0 result. I mean, that hurt badly. But it was the fact that Traore was their best player up to the point Mings got sent off.
Yeah.
And they had to take him off to sacrifice him. And it still made no difference to the way they played. And this is a player, if you look at these players, they signed him for 15 million, yeah? That's Palace territory. That's a Palace fee territory. Why aren't we in for players like him? You know, why are we nowhere near Matty Cash, 12 million from Nottingham Forest?
We're in a great still.
Why are we not in for players like this? If we're saying that's the ballpark figure of where we can afford, I don't understand why we're a million miles away from players like that.
Well, Ben Rama, I was pretty upset with going
Yeah,
to West
but
Ham.
Ben Rama, the problem with Ben Rama, and I would have loved it if we'd have signed Watkins, but we're not spending £30 million on a striker because we've got no acumen when it comes to recruitment. We would rather hemorrhage hundreds of thousands a week on wages for players that are basically made of glass and give them stupidly long contracts and ignore the fact that we can't score for toffee. We'd rather invest money in players like that than in a striker, which is what we so desperately needed. Yeah, Mateta, if he turns out to be the real deal, at £2 million loan fee and an 11 million fee after that will be a steal at 13 million in total. That's the sort of ballpark figure we're looking at.
But maybe we're still being punished for buying Benteke at 30 million. Do you know what I mean?
We learned our lesson from that one, though.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, when Watkins plays, you just think, oh, he's going to score against us. And he definitely is a player that I'd like to see. But maybe it is a case of, look, we've been stung before, so we're not going to do it again.
What's the three main things you think of, boys, when you think of Andy Johnson?
Goal poacher. Well, he was a runner.
He was a proper striker.
So
yeah.
pace.
He was a fox in the box, though, wasn't he? Really?
Yeah. Pace, clinical,
skillful,
and work rate.
Yeah.
The bloke didn't stop running. Now, if you go back to Ollie Watkins, pace, bloke don't stop running, and he can finish. And yes, we should have been in for him. We may not have got him. He may have chosen to still go to someone like Villa because of that connection with Dean Smith and Nepal. But you've got to be in it to win it in these sort of players. And at the end of the day, that's the exact player that we need and haven't had since Andy Johnson days.
Well, we tried it with Gale, didn't we? I know he wasn't exactly proven.
Well, Gale, the problem with Gale wasn't the fact of... Well, there was a couple of problems. He kept getting injured, which didn't help him. So there was no real kind of traction from him. But the main issue for him, and I feel for him, is the managers that we've had don't like small players, don't trust in small players. So he never really got a look in. And at Championship level, he's proven. At Premier League level, I think he's just been unlucky with the managers that he's had. I think that's gone against him. But... we're talking about re-signing him because his contract's finishing. He's 31.
I did say that. I did say that.
It's why are we looking at players like this? We should be looking at players that that we've already got. I mean, I can't remember the name of the kiddie, the under-18s kid that's scoring for fun. There's a kiddie in there that was being linked to Leeds, and Leeds were tapping him up, but we ended up giving him a new a contract and securing him.
What, a blonde hair kiddie?
Huh?
Is he blonde hair?
I think so, yeah. If these players are that good and we're fighting to keep them and we're being very complimentary about them, give them a go. Give them a go. What's the worst that can happen?
That's how we did it with Wan-Bissaka and Pierrick, Mitchell.
I think we had more of a game.
We've done it with those players because we don't have any choice, because Hodgson hasn't got the intelligence as a manager. Everyone says that, he's got that experience, he's got all of this national experience as well, he's a highly regarded manager, but he doesn't manage with any intelligence. He gives praise for players, he tells players that they're playing really well, but he doesn't give them a chance. And when we're in a position where we're forced and don't have any chance whatsoever, all of a sudden someone gets a chance and it's like, hang on, look at this player, he's actually decent.
It's almost like he takes credit for it.
Yeah, he was decent. He was decent before you had no choice to choose him. You've chosen him now. So what else is in there that we could be choosing?
Yeah.
but with him, is that the team that he wants? When he came in, he wanted 6, 7 players, and then it comes up to this window. I didn't expect us to look at all this window, if I'm perfectly honest. Are we scared to get rid of him, to get a new manager in, to then say, unfortunately, there's no funds for you?
Well, I think we over the problem is we seem like we're so keen to execute a transfer to make the Palace fans happy, to appease them.
Yeah.
That we leave it to the last minute. We never do it early. And,
Well, we have.
Given that situation in the last minute, we then start having to over-egg the amount of wages that we commit. There's no way on earth that we would be paying Benteke and Sacco the wages that we're paying them right now if we'd had acted far earlier in those given windows. It's the fact that we left it literally to the last day, to the last minute. We've had to over-egg it to secure it because the agents know that they've got you over a barrel, and they can basically, get that package for their player, which means they earn more money as well.
It is nice to be linked with players like Gray and Benrahma. I think we started to get linked with a better pool. Whether we can pull them in is a completely different matter. But going back to that, talking about Villa and being gutted to losing to Villa, I watched them against Man City, and I'll tell you what, if they had someone up front that could finish properly, they probably should have won that game. Grealish was tearing them apart. They didn't hardly touch the ball, but when he got the ball, he fed someone straight through, and it was like Man City didn't have a defence at times.
Yeah, I've not been the biggest fan of Grealish, just going on a side point, but he's an amazing player when he stays on his feet. It's the diving antics that really drive me insane. And it's the same with, I'm not saying Wilf dives. What annoys me and annoyed me this season with Wilf is the kind of strops. You take yourself out of the game, mate. Just get on with it. It's a compliment if you get taken out. So it's just basically get on with it. You've been taken out. You've got your free kick. Crack on and just show that player next time round you're attacking him that he made a mistake and he's going to make the same mistake again.
Even the pundits, and I hate most of them, but they're right. Players just know how to get in his head now, and that's not where we want him to be. We want him playing his game. We want him doing what he can do, and he just seems to get lost in pettiness, in rows, in sort of semi-fights, if you like. He just doesn't need to be involved in.
No, he doesn't, and that goes without saying. We haven't got a captain. Yes, Luca is captain, but he's not captain material. He's not in the referee's ear. He's not controlling his team. He's not driving them forward. There's no passion in the guy. You hardly hear a thing from him. And that's even more apparent when you're watching these games, because you can practically hear everything. But he's literally not making what you would think as a captain, that kind of those decisions and stuff. And he should know. He should know that your set plays, your corners, your free kicks aren't going very well, and you're off form on that. So give it to someone who's actually going to do something with the ball. Those are the sort of things that really frustrate me with him.
He's a player though that needed dropping a long time ago, and it's a bit like PVA. Sometimes just take them out of the spotlight. Look, they're having a bit of a torrid time. Take them out of the spotlight. Help them out. Try and help these players. Because otherwise, all that happens, if they haven't got that bounce back, they just sink.
Yeah. It's good to have that healthy competition for your place as well. It makes you fight harder.
The competition is there. Our squad, this team's probably one of the best teams that we've had. And it's still not amazing, but the competition is there. In midfield, you've got Gyro. At the back, you've got Mitchell. You're going to have Ferguson coming in. The striking options, we've got more. I think a winger we do need, so Damari Gray would definitely slot in. Schlopp, when he comes back, we've got
the players at our disposal, and last season we probably should have secured Jared Bowen. That would have been a good signing. He's done really well for West Ham, and I think he's a danger tomorrow night. to be honest, tomorrow night, given the way that we've kind of played and stuff, and we've been up and down, I'd personally be quite happy with I'd be happy with a draw. I'd
I
take a
think it'd
point.
be a draw. I think it'll definitely be a draw. I think we'll have chances. The thing is, with this whole thing of not having a shot on target, we do go through spells of a season where we don't score. And then the pundits are on us again. Oh, Palace haven't scored in 3 games. And then we're going to win 2-3-0. So I'm not overly worried with that. Maybe with the shots, if you're not having shots on goal, you're never going to score. So I completely get that. But I just think that it will come good.
Yeah, I mean, we just need to get a bit of momentum, boys. I think we need to get a few decent results because it has been very sort of up and down. We have a good result, and then it's the polar opposite the next game. So I think we need to get a string of wins under our belt. I think we've got some good fixtures coming up, and some winnable games. I mean, West Ham and Wolves will be tough, but Wolves at the moment that they are there for the taking. West Brom showed that.
Yeah.
So there's a
West
massive
Brom.
difference if you take the game to someone. As I said earlier, if you're attacking them, they've got to think about you rather than you thinking about them.
Yeah.
So I think that's the approach we need to take tomorrow night.
It's weird being Palace because the Burnley game, the Sheffield United game, you wouldn't be surprised if we lost. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if we beat West Ham. We definitely have got it in there.
Thing. You've hit it on the nail, Ben. Palace fans, we're all alike, top people and whatnot. We aren't taken aback when we win a game because it's like, Jesus, we have actually got that in us.
Yeah, it's not a surprise. It's almost like, we was half expecting it, but also half expecting to get slapped 3-0.
Yeah, you hope for everything.
Yeah.
But you accept the inevitable. It always seems to be the way.
That's why I was so bemused with the Man City comments. It's just like, come on, guys, it's Man City. They're top of. I think they still got a game in hand, didn't they? It's being realistic. We can't beat Man City every season, as nice as it is. It's just a bit of realism sometimes. I know what you're saying. We didn't go for it.
Don't get me wrong. I've got realism. We play a top 6 side. You hope for everything, but expect nothing. That is always my mentality. And sort of for social media, you hope that you nick a win so that you can just spoil a bit of what. But there's that kind of aspect to it, that side of it, where you can have a laugh. But at the end of the 90 minutes, if you lose, well, is it a shock? Is it a surprise? Not really. But if it's the opposite, you rejoice. You take those moments.
Yeah, but we have one this season, right? Man United.
Yeah.
Tottenham point.
Didn't expect anything out of those games. Arsenal, to be fair, given the fact their form had picked up, you didn't expect anything from them either. But yeah, it's the games against your Burnleys, your Newcastles. Those are the ones that hurt and frustrate you the most, because it's like, to take that next step, to show some ambition, to show that you want to move up as a club, you got to be winning those games. And when you don't, and you waste those opportunities, it's just really, really frustrating.
Are the board showing that, though? Are the board bringing in the players for us to compete for? I mean, if you put those wins in from Newcastle and Burnley, we're up there, right?
The board aren't doing anything, boys. We know that. You've got two Americans that are worth absolutely loads, but don't want to spend a penny. They just want to take money out of the club. I don't know whether it's a fact, but I did see a report last season. I was pulled up on it by Alan Dunn. He's a good lad. You might have seen him around on Twitter. And he said, "Oh, where did you see this?" And I saw it, and I was really taken aback because I'd heard that they wanted a 50% markup. Whether it's true or not, it could be a complete fable. But if that is reality, it's like, Why are you coming into a club to not invest anything, to take money out, to go? You're better off saying, look, guys, it's not for us. We need to sell our stake to someone that does want to invest. And if someone like Burnley can get, a massive investment and an investor, with the greatest respect to them, they've done brilliantly under Sean Dyche. So I won't disrespect them in any way. But surely a London club with the pool that we've got, 8 seasons in the Premier League now, surely
it would seem attractive, wouldn't it?
We'd be a bit more attractive.
Yeah.
But that's where this frustration grows, though, isn't it? Is watching teams like Wolves come in to the Premier League and then spend this money. Even Villa spend this money, and we seem to be falling behind. Where it's like, wait a minute, we've been here X amount of years before you, and it feels like they're overtaking us.
Well, I mean, if I have a lot of banter with my mate who's Villa, and yeah, I do wind him up a bit, and he winds me up, whatnot. But if anyone had any nous, and I've said this, and it's been proven, and especially at the end of this season, you've got to be all over the Brentford recruitment team, or the Ajax one, or the Juventus, or the Villa one, because look at the players that those teams are bringing in. This Salmon guy from France, 14 million. Matty Cash, 12 million. Traore, 17 million. Louise, 15 million. And these are all young players. They're all quality players. I know they paid a lot more for Watkins and stuff like that. They paid 20 million for the keeper. He's a decent keeper. But, if you're 8 seasons into the Premier League, surely your business plan looks a lot more inviting than it seems to be in terms of what you can spend and outlay. And it can only be the wages that we commit that is costing us, I think.
On reflection, though, looking at the players that are coming out of contract, the frustration grows even more, though, doesn't it? Because we win those games, we are in the European spots or thereabout, but it just doesn't seem like it's getting backed enough. We're looking maybe too high when we should be looking at the now, thinking, right, we need to staple these players down before we can move forward. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, you only have to look at the message that I sent you earlier. Connor Wickham, it's been 6 years with the club. He's played 26 matches and scored 11 goals. And we've paid him nearly £20 million in that 6-year period.
Wow.
He's cost us 800 grand per game and £1.8 million per goal. And we knew what his injury record was like because he'd already been injured, but we renewed his contract again and give him another 3-year contract. I just don't understand what we're doing as a club.
But what do you do as a manager if you say, I want a striker, and you can't pull in anyone, and you've got this guy sat there? Is it better the devil you know than you don't?
Well, I mean, if he's fit on his day, he's a good player. We've seen that. He's fit again. He's at Sheffield Wednesday, isn't he, on loan? Or he was going there.
Yeah, it was at a certain point, last season.
If the guy's fit and you need a striker to play, stop farming players out. Give them a go to prove their worth. Or if they're not in your plans and they're not in your worth and what you're thinking, just bloody sell them. Just get rid.
It's saving money at the end of the day, isn't it? That's what you want if that's what they main intention of doing is saving money.
But what's the point in paying Connor Wickham 60 grand a week if he's not in your plans?
But didn't that happen with Murray, though? Manager came in, said, I don't really want him. He sort of started ruffling feathers. Even Jednak, what a player. What a player.
We're coming to the end of our time now, boys. So I'm just going to get from you your predictions for tomorrow night.
Oh, 1-0.
That's what I was going to say as well. I was going to say 1-0 Eze.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 1-0 Eze, and I'll take a point. I'll be happy with that. And of course, I'll take a win. Any win will do, but I think with the players that they've got at their disposal, and I think Antonio is a massive, massive handful.
He always is against Palace, isn't he?
Yeah, massive handful. But
Well,
at
let's see,
least,
holds it up in the
at
corner
least we
flag.
can't concede a wonder goal by Haller, given
Exactly.
the £45 million they've wasted on him and sold him for 20.
Amazing.
So can't all be that bad. We're not as bad as them.
Yeah. Ben Ramos scored a goal probably, not us.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Well, it's been quality. You've been listening to Eagles on Air via the Sportanarium stream channel. Look forward to hearing more from us, boys, in next week's show. Thanks a lot, guys.
Take care.
Everyone stay safe.
Stay safe. Peace.
Cheers.